let's get started on the next effect. I will be using the force field environment for this. So I already made a copy and called it level 6 missiles. I'm keeping our main character with the invisible sphere around her as a collider. We're gonna use that again. And let's set this up from scratch this time. So I will right click, make a new Niagara system, empty system, call it ns_missiles, drop it in, reset location to 0, and make a new minimal emitter, F2, and rename it hexagon. And so you'll notice I'm gonna start going a bit quicker because we are further into the course and we've already covered all of this at least 2 times, right? So by the time we've covered something multiple times, I assume that you know how to do these basics. Let's make this a GPU sim right away with fixed bounds, emitter update, spawn rate, set that to 1500, initialized particle lifetime, let's do 4 seconds. With sprite size set to uniform. The main part of this is we need a shape location module. And here you can set it to ring/disk, but then you actually have a hexagon mode right here. So enable that. So for the radius, I did 1250. And the disk coverage in this case will control the thickness of the borders of the hexagon, right? If I set this all the way to 1, then it gets completely filled. So I ended up at 0.05. So a pretty thin, nice shape like this. So basically the idea is that this witch has cast a spell that created this hexagon around our, let's call her Yennefer, right? And then there will be some magic missiles flying from the borders attacking Yennefer in here. The color scheme is up to you. I ended up going with that blue magenta combo. So under initialize, we can set the color mode to random range, and I'll give it 2 shades of blue. So as usual, the first color, we can do a brighter blue, and the second color like a much darker saturated blue. Under particle update, we can again give it a scale sprite size and just click on this preset, ramp up and down. And we want them to glow, so scale color. And again, I want just one number here, so arrow and vector from float, and give it a random range between, I did 5 and 20. So this will give them nice emissive blue color. Okay, so now let's work on the particles flying from the edges toward the center. So I'll just Control C on this hexagon and Control V, rename it as sparks. Spawn rate, we can do 200, and let's change their color so we can see them easier. So I'll do like a light pink and then a much darker, almost magenta. Now if we just attract them to the center, they will travel along the ground, but we need them to kind of shoot up first and then curve and guide themselves toward the center, right, to make it look cooler. So let's give them some velocity first. Add velocity module, fix issue. So now they're going up, but at the exact same speed. So as usual, we want to randomize this. 0 on X, 0 on Y. And on the Z axis, I did 250 and 1750 for the maximum. And now the most crucial part of this is the spring force module. So under particle update, you can search for spring force. And by default, the point that it's attracted to is the origin of the simulation, which is at 0, right? So this is why I like to stay in the habit of always resetting the location and, if possible, having everything centered in the origin of my scene, because it just makes setting up effects that much easier. So I'll set that to 2 and the strength to 2, right? So now they shoot up and then they are attracted to the middle, but I want them to be attracted to a lower point because right now they kind of converge above the head of our hero. So for this particle equilibrium position, which means the point to which they're attracted to, you can click on the arrow and say convert vector to position. And now you can just set the Z to -100. So they're basically attracted like under the ground, but in reality they end up flying exactly where our hero is. And next I need to kill them by the time they reach the force field. So for that we can search for kill particles in volume, and by default it's already set to sphere. So you can just increase the sphere radius. I did 400, and this just creates a kill volume in the origin of the scene. So the particles simply get killed as soon as they reach that kill volume, which works really well for us because that's where our invisible force field is, right? Now to randomize the speed of these particles a little bit more, we can also add a drag module and randomize the strength of the drag between just, let's say, 0.1 and 0.25. And this will randomly slow them down so they don't all get attracted at the exact same speed. So I wouldn't mind these being a bit bigger and brighter. For the scale sprite size, we can just increase the curve scale, but we can randomize that as well, so they're each a different size. So again, random range between, let's say, 1.5 and 2. And for the scale color, 10 to 50. So some of them are visibly much bigger and glowing, but they're not casting any light on the ground, and that would be a nice little touch to add to this. So make sure you save all, and then we can select the sparks emitter, Control C, Control V, F2, and rename it as lights. Now for this one, I'm gonna set the spawn rate pretty low, so maybe just 50 particles. And we need to change it to a CPU sim with dynamic bounds so that we can use the light renderer. So under render, I will search for light renderer. Let's try a diffuse scale of 100, and for the radius scale, I had to do a lot, so let's try 2000. Okay, so this is kind of what I'm going for. It's probably a bit too strong right now, but I think you get the idea. I just want to imply that the particles and then later the missiles are casting some light on the ground. Reduce the diffuse scale to maybe just 50. Lifetime, let's try just 2 seconds. Alright, so this will be my final result for part 1. We've created a shape, and then we're using the spring force to emit some particles and attract them toward the middle. And in the next video, we will add the Niagara fluid smoke trails.